13 spine-chilling ex-partner tales. Terrifying real-life experiences uncovered and revealed. Sarah sat up, heart racing. The creaks of her modest home echoed through the stillness, as if the very walls were whispering secrets. She scanned the living room, where the shadows darted from corner to corner, stretching and contorting in the flickering light. The air felt heavy, laden with an unease that clung to her skin. As a single mother, she had fought hard to break free from Tom's suffocating grip, but now, alone in her fortress of solitude, it felt more like a prison. Strange noises invaded her dreams and woke her at night. The toys that her kids scattered across the floor? Each morning, they mysteriously migrated to different rooms. A chill raced down her spine as she recalled the fleeting sensation of being watched. Was Tom back? The very thought sent waves of panic crashing over her. Yet the silence from his side was deafening. David, her friendly neighbor, often checked in, his easy smile a comfort against the lurking shadows. But there was something about his gaze, the intensity of it, that made her skin crawl. As he offered help, her mind whispered uneasy warnings. Why was he always so eager? The suburban streets should have felt inviting, but they were riddled with unease, each friendly wave feeling like a trap snapping shut around her. With dusk creeping in, her once cozy living room morphed into a battleground. Her children were fast asleep upstairs, blissfully unaware of the dread clawing at their mother's insides. A chill dripped through the air, revealing a deeper darkness lurking just beyond the threshold. She fidgeted with the sofa cushion, trying to shake off the remnants of fear. Then it started. Her phone buzzed after midnight with an unfamiliar number. "I see you," the message read, sending her heart spiraling into a frenzy. A photo accompanied the text, a blurry image of her house taken from her window. Cold sweat clung to her brow as she gripped her phone, trying to squeeze the panic away. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The once comforting sounds of the neighborhood had distorted into something eerie. She tried to dismiss the echo of her own breathing, counting the moments until dawn. But her thoughts raged as the shadows danced closer. This wasn't paranoia. This was survival. The clips of David's kindness started playing in her mind like a film, each one transitioning sourly as she learned of his past. Memories of obsession and violence clung to his name. It didn't matter how friendly he seemed, the sinister undercurrents bubbled to the surface. Then, on a night choked with anxiety, Sarah's worst fears unfolded before her eyes. Outside her window, the silhouette of David appeared, the moonlight carving the sharp edges of his face. Their gazes locked. Fear morphed into confrontation as he stepped closer, mask falling, revealing a predator behind a charming facade. With her children safely asleep, she trembled, fingers tightening around the remote like it was a weapon. As she prepared to flee into the house, her phone buzzed again. "I see you." Panic surged as she realized the truth. The nightmare wasn't just David, it was everywhere. Would she escape this web of fear before it tightened for good? The night felt thick with impending doom, leaving her wondering if safety could exist in that darkened suburban jungle. Sarah's heart pounded like a wild drum in her chest as David's figure loomed outside. The faint glow of the streetlights barely illuminated his face, but the darkness behind him seemed to pulse, eager and waiting. She took a shaky step back, pressing herself into the hard edge of the armrest, thankful for the barrier between her and the nightmare outside. "Sarah!" he called out, voice smooth like melted chocolate, but undeniably laced with something sharper lurking beneath. "Why won't you let me in? I just want to help." His words dripped with feigned concern, each syllable striking her like a nail. She couldn't breathe. She felt the panic clawing its way up her throat, choking her. If he pushed through that door. No, she wouldn't let that happen. Her children. The very thought of them lying asleep upstairs made her pulse quicken. "Go away, David!" she shouted, forcing the command through gritted teeth. But he only chuckled, a chilling sound that sent shivers down her spine. Help you? But I thought that's what neighbors are for. He stepped closer, almost as if he was testing the limits of her fear. The moonlight illuminated his eyes, and for a brief moment, she saw something monstrous staring back. Desperate, she rushed to the door, locking it with trembling hands. She turned toward the living room, eyes darting to the kitchen, thinking about what she could use as a weapon. Kitchen knives? A frying pan? Nothing felt powerful enough against the impending threat. The house felt smaller, like its walls were closing in on her. Her phone buzzed again. Will you let me help? It read. But it wasn't the number she had received before. This one was even less familiar, a series of numbers and letters that blurred in her frazzled mind. A wave of frost washed over her skin. She quickly swiped to the contact list, but she felt a momentary lapse of terror, a black spot in her memory. Had she saved anyone's number recently? Something smashed against the window. Glass splintered. The sound of her own scream shocked her, echoed in the silence of the night. She staggered back as the sickening crack of something heavy hit the floorboards. She couldn't stay frozen. That was exactly what the predator outside wanted. She had to move. In a rush, she dashed toward the stairwell, throwing a glance back at the now jagged hole where the glass had been. David was coming. She could feel it, taste it. The air felt charged with every heartbeat. Stumbling up the stairs, she took stair after stair in a blinding panic. The hallway was dark, but she knew every inch of that space, the splintered wood under her bare feet guiding her to the sanctuary of her children's rooms. Mommy? A soft voice floated from her eldest's room. She froze at the sound. Would she bring danger straight to them? Stay in your room, honey, she whispered, her voice tight with fear. But could she truly protect them if he found them first? Her phone buzzed incessantly, but she couldn't look. The next buzz felt different, stronger, more insistent, like a heartbeat. Get out while you still can, it warned. The message chilled her to the bone, sending ice through her veins. Who was it from? Was it somehow connected to him? David's voice filtered up the stairs, muffled but unmistakable. Just a little chat, Sarah. I'm not here to hurt you yet. Panic surged again, battling the logical part of her mind that screamed to evaluate the situation. She needed help. She should call the police. But what could she even say? All her instincts screamed that time was running out. In the chaos of emotions, desperate but calculated, Sarah grabbed the door to her youngest's bedroom, going after Hope. But what awaited her on the other side was far worse than she could have imagined. The night was far from over, and now she had to confront the shadows lurking in her own home. Would she find a way to reclaim her peace? Or was every safety net unraveling right before her eyes? The air held its breath, waiting for the next move. Sarah flung the door open, and the sight before her twisted her stomach into knots. Instead of the quiet, serene face of her youngest son peacefully asleep, she was met with a grim scene. The room was in disarray, stuffed animals scattered, toy blocks strewn across the floor like forgotten memories. But worse yet, the bed was empty. Ethan? She rasped. No response. Panic clawed at her throat, growing sharper. She rushed into the room, scanning every corner, heart racing. There was a faint noise beneath the bed, a whimper, or a cough, she couldn't decipher which. Sarah dropped to her knees, her palms slick against the wooden floor. Ethan, sweetheart, are you there? The only answer was silence hanging like a noose around her throat. She reached under, her fingers brushing against something surprisingly warm and trembling. Relief rushed through her as she pulled him out. Ethan, wide-eyed and breathless. Mom! He's coming! He cried, clinging to her shirt. His small body shook, and his eyes darted to the open door behind her. Who's coming? The weight of dread pressed down on her, mixing with her frantic love for him. She had to protect him. We need to hide. Come on! But as she swung around, David stood framed in the doorway, an ominous silhouette against the hall light. His smile was a predatory curve, tightening the skin on her face. Playing hide and seek, are we? I love that game, he said, stepping further into the room. Get away from us! Sarah shouted, her voice breaking. She tightened her grip on Ethan, pulling him closer. They were just two souls against the storm, but somehow, she knew they needed to fight. He seemed unbothered, his eyes glinting with malicious amusement. You're not very good at this, Sarah. You should have just let me in. The urge to scream bubbled inside her, but she swallowed it back. The last thing she wanted was to give him satisfaction. You need to leave, David. This isn't your home anymore. Her voice wavered but held an edge. Home? Everyone knows home is where the heart is, he said, tilting his head as he stared at her. And your heart, it's out there, just waiting for me. In that moment, a realization hit her. The strange messages, the warnings. They needed to get out, none of it made sense, but every instinct told her he was more dangerous than she ever imagined. Ethan, we're going! She turned on her heel, but David lunged forward, blocking the path before they could escape. Not so fast. He extended his hand as if trying to coax a wild animal. Let us talk first. She felt Ethan's small fists clench against her shirt, and she knew time was slipping away. A choice loomed before her: take a risk to push past him, or find a way to keep him distracted. Do you remember that old saying? What doesn't he kill you makes you stronger. Sarah's voice faltered, but she forged ahead, stepping toward him, even as fear leapt in her throat. You're not strong enough to play with us anymore. A slight flicker of annoyance crossed his face, revealing how the words pierced deeper than she intended. You shouldn't have said that, Sarah. Without warning, he lunged. Her body reacted before thought, shoving Ethan behind her just as she swung her arm in a wild arc. Somewhere in the chaos, the phone buzzed again, a shriek in her pocket that echoed Nathan's plea. But she couldn't look. The moment was all-consuming. A moment that would either spell their freedom or seal their demise. The darkness within their home felt alive, breathing, swirling around as the confrontation escalated. Would she find a way to protect her boy, or would David's malice claim them both? The air crackled, thick with uncertainty, holding its breath for a resolution that lingered just out of reach. Suddenly, a crash echoed from the living room, a prelude to violence. Run! Sarah shouted, fear recharging her limbs as she darted into the shadowed hall. But the screams of innocence echoed somewhere inside her, begging her to stay and fight. Yet what if the darkness beyond was worse than what lurked inside? She turned back, eyes meeting David's, the tension pulling tighter. Which path would truly lead to salvation? One thing was certain: the night was far from over, and soon they would know if it was an escape or ensnarement that awaited them next. They sprinted down the hall, the oppressive darkness clawing at them, wrapping tendrils around Sarah's ankles as if desperately trying to drag her back. Ethan's small hand gripped hers like a vice, his breath coming in short, terrified gasps behind her. Mom, I am scared, he whimpered, glancing over his shoulder, searching for the monster that lurked close behind. I know, sweetheart. Just keep running. She stumbled through the shadowy corridor, her heart thundering like a drum in her chest. The crash from the living room echoed again, louder this time, like the roar of a beast stirred from sleep. They reached the foot of the stairs, and she paused for just a heartbeat, pondering whether to ascend into the darkness above or flee deeper into the house filled with memories and nightmares. The dread coiling in her gut urged her upward, a mother's instinct to put distance between them and the danger. Mom, what about Dad? Ethan's voice cracked, his innocent query slicing through the chaos. His mention of Nathan sent a ripple of dread through her. Nathan had gone to the store moments before all this, a harmless errand turned nightmare. She stepped forward, dragging Ethan behind her, eyes scanning the shadows. He'll be here soon. We have to hide first. The upstairs was a maze of memories, but there was no time to think of them now. She found herself pushing open the door to the bathroom, small, cramped, and dark. Not ideal, but better than exposing themselves. She ushered Ethan inside, closing the door softly behind them. The little room felt suffocating. The air was thick with steam and echoes of a childhood bath. The rubber ducky still perched on the edge of the tub. Ethan's wide eyes searched every shadow, clinging to her as if she were a lifeline. "Do you think he'll find us?" His voice quivered, the fear palpable. "Not if we stay quiet," Sarah whispered, willing her own rapid heartbeat to slow. She pressed her finger to her lips, motioning for silence. But her stomach churned. David was not an ordinary threat. He was a cunning predator driven by a darkness Sarah could hardly understand. The silence in the bathroom was deafening, broken only by their shallow breaths and the muffled sounds of the house creaking around them. The darkness outside felt alive, pulsating, just beyond the door. Her mind spiraled into what-ifs, the worst-case scenarios, each one more terrifying than the last. Then there was a knock. A soft, innocent tap that echoed like thunder. Her blood ran cold as she exchanged a panicked glance with Ethan. "Mom?" came David's voice, deceptively sweet, like a sickly sweet poison. "I know you're in there. You can't hide from me forever." The boy beside her trembled, pressing against her side. "What do we do?" he whimpered, his voice barely a whisper. "Sure," she whispered harshly, trying to think. She had to protect him. "We'll wait him out. He can't stay here forever." But her stomach twisted deeper with each syllable. She could sense the truth spiraling around them like a noose. The horror hadn't re-entered the house, it had been inside them all along. Had it always been David? Or had something more sinister intertwined itself with his soul? He knocked again, harder this time. "Come on, Sarah. Let us stop the games. You don't want to make things worse." A shiver ran down her spine. What did he mean? Was he truly capable of unspeakable things? And what was waiting for them in that living room? "Ethan, if he opens the door, we must be ready to move," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, her mind racing for an escape plan. "No matter what happens, trust me." "Okay," he replied, the fear in his eyes mingling with trust, a powerful combination that turned her resolve into steel. Suddenly, the doorknob rattled, slowly twisting, creating an anxiety that twisted like a knife. Would she have the strength to face this night? Would they survive it? The door creaked open, inching toward darkness as David's voice whispered through the opening. Let us play. In that moment, they were no longer just mother and son hiding from danger, but something deeper, figures in a game that had no clear end, something ominous lurking beyond the door. What awaited them on the other side? Would they confront the monster, or would the monster find them first? The door swung open with a soft creak, revealing a sliver of shadowy hallway that seemed to pulsate with the darkness pooling around David's form. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat, smothered by fear. She could barely discern his face, twisted into a smile that sent icy shivers down her spine. "Surprise!" he called out, a hint of mocking sweetness in his voice. The room trembled with a chill so deep it seeped into her bones. She gripped Ethan tighter, his small body shaking against her. The air felt thick like the fog rolling in from the sea, heavy with an uneasy tension that seemed to warn her. This wasn't a game, it was a trap. "Come on, just say you're ready. I brought something special." His voice lured, tempting, laden with menace. As he stepped closer, the dim light flickered across his features, revealing eyes that glowed with a predatory excitement. The monster was home, and he was ready to play. Ethan buried his face in Sarah's side, a whimper escaping his lips. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribcage like a hammer. They had to leave. The bathroom felt like a coffin closing in around them. She could already sense the predator's intent. "Stay quiet, Ethan," Sarah echoed her own silent command, pulling back to look at her son. The trust shimmering in his eyes twisted her heart, a reminder of the innocence she was desperate to protect. Her mind raced through possibilities, weighing risks and fears. David leaned his head closer to the doorframe. "I know you can hear me," he taunted. "Don't you want to play? I'd be a great partner. We could have so much fun together." The syllables dripped with malice, venomous and sharp. "On 3 we run," she whispered to Ethan. 1, 2. She was ready for the third count, her heart surging with adrenaline, when suddenly the lights flickered again and went out. Darkness poured into the tiny bathroom like an ocean wave, swallowing them whole. "And Mom?" Ethan squeaked, his voice laced with terror. The silence was palpable, thick with dread. She soothed, even as sweat trickled down her back. They became silhouettes within the shadows, huddled together, praying to remain unseen. "Why don't you just show yourself?" David's voice pierced through the silence, low and menacing. "I promise, it won't hurt not for long." A crash echoed from the other end of the house, shattering the stillness. It felt like the entire world was shaking. That was just the beginning. In the unending blackness, Sarah felt a strange pull, an urge to look at the door, to confront the monster. She fought against it, pushing her fear down and forcing her mind to focus on escape. They couldn't stay here. They needed to find Nathan. "Ready?" she whispered. Ethan nodded, heart pounding against her side, an agreement forged in shared terror. With a sudden rush, she flung the door open. "Go!" They bolted into the hall, a flash of lightning amidst encroaching darkness. The air was electric, charged with danger. They flew past shadows and memories, past the living room that had been a sanctuary and now felt like a tomb. "Mom! Where do we go?" Ethan cried, fear spilling over into panic. The house was alive, creaking and groaning in response to their rush. Every corner felt like it was crawling with wickedness. Sarah's heart raced as she scanned their options. "Out!" she shouted, pushing through the back door that led to the garden. The cool night air hit them like a wave, surreal against the burning fear inside. But the safety outside quickly dissipated when she saw the moonlight illuminating the ground, revealing something on the grass. A series of footprints, leading away from the house, into the thick woods beyond. "Ethan, look!" she gasped, gripping his shoulders. The terror twisted as the realization hit her. "Who's here?" A rustling sound came from the trees, and her heart plummeted. This was more than just David now. The looming dark harbored promises of more dangers than she could fathom. "Run!" They took off again, but the forest loomed, alive and whispering, shadows shifting and dancing between the trees. What horrors lay waiting in the woods? What awaited them if they escaped the house? In that moment, the night echoed with a sinister melody. An unending chase had only just begun, and the hunter might not be who they expected. The trees closed in around them, limbs gnarled and grasping like the fingers of lost souls. Sarah felt the oppressive weight of the woods pressing against her, every rustle a whisper of threat. The shadows moved, morphing into lurking specters as she sprinted, pulling Ethan with her. Each frantic step felt like a second chance, yet an ending loomed just behind her. "Mom, I can't!" Ethan gasped, his little legs struggling to keep pace. Fear painted his voice in panic, choked down by breathless gasps. "Keep going! We have to!" Sarah urged, spinning to skin the dark trail behind them, praying they had a head start, praying David or whatever else was out there wasn't right on their heels. Her heart thudded in her ears, drowning out the sounds of the night. The darkness was alive, a predator shrouded in mystery. A sharp crack echoed, the sound ricocheting through the trees. Sarah's stomach dropped. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, frozen for a moment, straining to listen. "Why, yeah," Ethan's voice faltered, eyes wide. "Mom, what if?" "Don't say it!" She pushed him forward. Fear was a poison, but she couldn't succumb to it. Not now. Hope flickered between the trees. "A light! Over there!" she yelled, feeling a surge of adrenaline. They darted toward it, the gentle glow breaking through the darkness like a promise of safety. As they neared the source, Sarah's heart dropped. It was an old lantern, one that belonged to the family cabin they used to visit. Memories washed over her, bittersweet, both safety and sorrow intermingled. She glanced at the tattered old structure looming in the brush, its once welcoming form now distorted by shadows. "Come on!" She didn't have time for uncertainty. They could hide there, regroup. Closer now, the beam beckoned like someone waiting to embrace them. Just as they reached the door, Ethan tugged at her shirt. "What if he finds us? What if he follows us here?" The thought sent ice curling down her spine. "We need to lock it!" They flung the door wide and stumbled inside, the dusty air thick with neglect. The lantern's flickering light illuminated remnants of laughter that now felt eerily out of place. Cracked chairs and faded photographs whispered stories through the dust. It was a nostalgic graveyard, nostalgia now tainted with dread. "Mom, over there!" Ethan pointed, voice a drumroll of fear as he spotted something on the table. A small box, dark and lusterless, yet it radiated an unsettling sense of familiarity. What was that doing here? She moved toward it cautiously, a strange pull coaxing her closer. A memory. One that twisted her stomach. No, it can't be. Her hand hesitated above the box, trembling. "Ethan, stay back!" she commanded, realizing too late that she had spoken too softly. The box swung open as she peeked inside. A note lay nestled in the shadows, the handwriting unmistakable. Her breath caught as she read the words, letters swimming before her eyes. "You can't escape me." The air thickened, pressing against her like a looming storm. "Mom?" Ethan's voice was softer now, anxious. The moment felt heavier, the words carrying an electric current of horror. Before she could respond, the door slammed shut behind them. The noise echoed like a gunshot in the silence, an omen of impending doom. "Mom, please!" Panic flared in Ethan's eyes. But Sarah was staring back at the note, grappling with the undeniable truth. There was nowhere to run. The hunter had become the hunted, and now the game had just begun. The lantern flickered, casting shadows that danced ominously. Outside, the rustling escalated, branches snapping under someone or something's deranged approach. But what was waiting outside? And who was really hunting whom? With a heart hammering against her ribs, Sarah knew they were trapped, surrounded by a darkness that knew too much, and wanted even more. The shadows closed in, and she braced herself for the worst. The air grew heavier, thrumming with an electric tension. Shadows twisted like angry serpents, inching closer to Sarah and Ethan as they huddled together. She could feel the walls of the cabin closing in on them, suffocating with memories of laughter and joy that felt foreign and deceptive now. They were no longer a sanctuary, they were a trap. "Mom!" Ethan pleaded, his voice barely a whisper. "What do we do?" Her mind raced. They had to think. "We can find another way out," she urged, scanning the darkened room for an exit. "There's got to be a back door or a window." The lantern flickered again, casting eerie shapes on the walls, stretching the shadows into grotesque forms. It was as if the cabin itself was alive, mourning its past while remaining a guardian of dark secrets. Suddenly, a thud resonated against the door, vibrating through the wooden frame. Both Sarah and Ethan recoiled, hearts leaping into their throats. Panic surged like wildfire. "Get down!" Sarah hissed, grabbing Ethan and pulling him low. She could hear the sound of breathing outside, ragged and strained, mingling with the frantic thumping of her heart. Whoever or whatever was there, it was close. Too close. "What if it's David?" Ethan whispered, eyes wide with horror. He clutched Sarah's arm, fingernails digging into her skin. Her mind raced with the implications. David was gone, wasn't he? But what if he had returned? Or was this something much worse? Something dark and primal, feasting on fear. With a deep breath, Sarah squirmed closer to the old, dust-covered window. It was too grimy to see through, but she couldn't risk a blind retreat. "I'm going to check," she decided, forcing herself to be brave. "Stay quiet. Don't move. Not until I come back." Ethan nodded, but the worry etched across his face was tangible. Sarah edged to the window, heart hammering in her chest. She wiped the glass with her sleeve, but all she could see was darkness, an abyss where the trees writhed, branches clawing at each other like tortured souls. Then movement caught her eye. A shadow? No, a figure. Tall, long limbs, standing unnaturally still. "Mom!" Ethan's voice trembled, a high pitch breaking through the oppressive silence. "What is it?" "I don't know," she barely whispered, trying to focus. The figure began moving, a slow, deliberate gait toward the cabin, as if it knew exactly where it was headed. "Get away from the window!" she hissed, turning to usher Ethan back into the shadows of the room. But when she turned around, dread clung to her like a shroud. The old lantern began flickering wildly, illuminating the definition of terror. An expressionless face appeared outside, reflected in the glass, its hollow eyes staring back like a lost soul. "Mom!" Ethan cried again, his voice shaking. It was too late to hide. The door rattled violently as heavy thuds echoed against it. The figure was right there, relentless before Sarah could turn. The door shattered inward, splintering like dry kindling, sending fragments flying. A grotesque creature surged through, a warped version of David, eyes ablaze with twisted intent. "Found you," it growled, voice dripping with malice. In that moment, Sarah's body froze, caught in the gaze of a predator whose smile twisted reality itself. They were trapped. The game had only just begun. And as darkness enveloped the room, a single thought screamed inside Sarah's mind: there was no escaping this nightmare. What did it want? What horrors lay in wait for them both? Each moment stretched into eternity, and Sarah braced for the imminent onslaught. The creature stood, dripping with malice and memories. Its eyes reflected an insatiable hunger, a wild spark of recognition mixed with dread that coursed through Sarah. Was this really David? Or just a horrifying illusion crafted by twisted shadows and grief? "Mom! What do we do?" Ethan's voice trembled, breaking through Sarah's paralysis. Before she could respond, the creature lunged forward, its grotesque form throwing shadows that danced across the walls like claustrophobic night terrors. Sarah grabbed Ethan's wrist tightly and yanked him into the cabin's depths, away from the glowing menace. "Hide!" she hissed, pushing Ethan beneath a rickety table, covered in dust and scraps of forgotten lives. Sarah squeezed in beside him, squeezing her eyes shut as terror rippled through her. The lantern sputtered, casting dim light that flickered unpredictably. It felt like time twisted, every moment suffocating and unending. The thumps of footsteps were brutal, a guttural rhythm that echoed through her mind. She clutched Ethan, feeling his heart pound against her side. Suddenly, a chilling laugh pierced the air, guttural and mocking. It was a sound that echoed the hollow laughter of long-lost joy. "You can't escape," the creature sang, voice slithering through the cabin like smoke. "You are mine, forever." Ethan's body shook against hers, the terror palpable. "Mom, I want to go home," he whimpered. The words struck Sarah harder than any blow. Home was a promise, once, filled with safety and warmth. But the safety was a distant memory now, traded for this labyrinth of nightmares. "I know, baby. I know," she breathed, squeezing him tighter. A sudden crash resounded as the lantern fell, extinguishing the flickering light. Darkness enveloped them, and for a moment the world held its breath. But the silence was shattered by a gnashing of teeth, a sound so raw and primal that it left her skin crawling. "Where are you?" The creature's voice cut through the dark, taunting, hungry. "I can smell your fear." They were so close. The cabin felt smaller, like it was folding in on itself. Firelight from outside flickered in through the broken door, illuminating grotesque shadows that danced menacingly on the walls. "Stay quiet," Sarah whispered, panic smothering her lungs. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to flee from the twisted echoes of the past. But how could they escape the horrors chasing them when they didn't even know where the exit was? Ethan's fingers dug into Sarah's arm, and she felt him trembling against her. She shifted slightly, moving to peer through a crack in the wood just as a large boot stomped near their hiding spot. Heart pounding, she held her breath. The laughter returned, close enough that she could feel its rancid breath. "Isn't this fun? Let us play a game!" It shrieked, a cackle that clawed at her sanity. "What's your favorite hiding spot?" Fear twisted her gut. They had to move. But the thought of drawing attention paralyzed her. Then another noise, a faint scuffle, came from the corner of the cabin. The creature paused, somehow sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Its focus shifted, narrowing in on something else lurking in the shadows. In this chilling moment of distraction, a flicker of hope surged through Sarah. "Ethan, we're going to run. When I say go, we bolt for the door, understand?" His eyes met hers, brimming with terror yet sparking with determination. "Okay," he whispered, his breath shaky. The creature moved, still drawn toward the new sound. Its back was turned, a fleeting opportunity hanging in the air like the scent of rain on dry pavement. Now! Go! They shot out from beneath the table like rockets, heartbeats pounding in their ears. The door was just a few strides away. Hope surged as they raced, but the laughter erupted once more, filling the air like a poisoned fog. Let the games begin. Sarah's heart sank. The hunt was far from over. A hand shot out, grasping her shoulder, icy fingers sinking into her skin. And then, the world dimmed, swallowed by an all-consuming darkness. Ethan screamed. In that moment, everything shattered, leaving Sarah feeling utterly vulnerable, gasping in terror as a new, horrible reality awaited her in the void. What lay beyond the dark? And who, or what, was truly hunting them? Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the entity's grip tightened, an arctic chill seeping into her skin. Panic suffocated her lungs, and she whipped around, desperate to see through the suffocating darkness. For a moment, she thought she saw the outlines of its face, the endless eyes filled with wretched joy, a grotesque parody of David's familiar smile. "Let him go!" she barked, each word warped by her rising fear. The creature chuckled again, the sound echoing like shattered glass. "Why would I do that? He's much more fun to keep," it hissed, a sly mockery. "Mom!" Ethan's voice was a frantic whisper, shimmering through the dark, a thread of desperation that echoed in her mind. That cry spun a tether between them, igniting a fierce resolve within her. She kicked back, trying to dislodge the ice-cold grip. Adrenaline punched through her veins. Sarah spun back to the door, feeling the rough wood behind her, coarse and real against the surreal terror consuming her. Ethan's soft whimpering pulled her back from the brink of despair, grounding her. She gritted her teeth and reached for him, heart racing, growing frantic as her fingers brushed against nothing but air. "Ethan, where are you?" The darkness swallowed her voice, but she pushed on. She needed to find him. She couldn't let this creature take him. A howling shriek filled the air, reverberating off the cabin walls as the creature shifted, stalking through the shadows. "More games!" it taunted, its voice slithering closer. "Ethan! Speak to me. I am here," he whimpered, fear rippling through his words. Sarah sprinted forward, abandoning all caution as she glimpsed the silhouette against the flickering light from the crack at the door. Just as she dove toward the shape, the cold fingers released their grip. She stumbled forward, breathless with a pang of hope. "Grab my hand!" she yelled, reaching out into the darkness, desperate fingers searching for the warmth of her son's touch. The moment their hands connected, a jolt of heat surged through them, grounding Sarah against the chill of horror surrounding them. Pulling Ethan close, she steadied herself, letting the flickering glow guide them. "We can do this. We have to get out." She thrust herself toward the door, unyielding, the fragile warmth of Ethan's body pushing her forward. Behind them, the creature's laughter crescendoed, drowning out everything else as it followed with hunger soaring in the madness it produced. The door seemed impossibly far, like their destination was an endless way off. With each step, the intensity of its growl resonated in her bones. Suddenly, scuttling footsteps retreated toward the other side of the cabin. Then silence fell. "Where did it go?" Ethan whispered, wide-eyed. "Don't move!" Sarah hissed, heart racing. They clung to each other, frozen in fear. And then it came. A shadowy figure loomed in their peripheral vision, creeping toward them in the silence like a predator stalking its prey. "Found you," the creature cooed softly, the sound serpentine and intoxicating. Panic surged within Sarah, her instincts screaming that they had to run. Now! They burst forward together, propelling each other toward the door with frenzied urgency. The light grew larger, consuming the dark shadows of despair that sought to cling to them. But just before they reached safety, the cabin shuddered as if alive, the walls closing in around them. In a final agonizing moment, Sarah glimpsed the creature's distorted face, eyes gleaming with malevolence, a horrid darkness swallowing everything whole. The door swung open, a blinding shaft of light beckoning. They leapt through just in time. But the feeling of relief was fleeting. Outside, the woods twisted and turned in an embrace of swirling mist, haunting them, holding their secrets. "Mom, where do we go?" Ethan cried, trembling. "No matter where we go," Sarah murmured, "it is always hunting. It knows what we fear." And then, a voice echoed through the trees, mingling with the gusts of cold wind. "You can't hide from me." They stood, consumed in uncertainty, as the woods loomed before them, waiting with bated breath beneath the canopy of despair. What lay ahead, and would they find a safety that was merely an illusion? The answer awaited them in the waiting dark. The moon hung high in the sky, spilling pale light over the encroaching shadows of the forest. Sarah could feel the weight of the darkness, thick and suffocating, all too aware that the true hunt was just beginning. They could run, but the monster would not relent. "We have to keep moving, sweetheart," she whispered, clutching Ethan's hand tighter. "Where?" he asked, his small voice trembling. "Anywhere but here." Through the skeletal trees stretching overhead, they forged ahead. Every crack from the underbrush felt like a sinister whisper, urging them to turn back, surrender to the nightmare. But surrender was not an option. With every step, Sarah searched for hope, some sign of safety. A flicker of a cabin light? Voices in the distance? But her thoughts tormented her, questions whirling chaotically. Would they ever escape this? The faint sound of laughter broke through the thick fog of fear, sending chills racing down her spine. It was haunting, echoing through the twisted branches, a cruel reminder of their reality. That sound, it was the creature, mocking their desperate flight. "I can't keep going," Ethan gasped, legs trembling as he stuttered to a stop. She turned to him, panic rising like bile in her throat. "Just a little further, I promise," she urged, kneeling beside him, brushing a sticky lock of hair from his face. "We just have to find a way out of here. We won't let it get us, right?" "Right," she breathed, forcing a smile. But doubt gnawed at her heart. How could she protect him from something that thrived on their fear? A sound made her freeze. An animal? No, it was too deliberate. Too dark. "We have to go, now." As if drawn by an unseen thread, they dashed deeper into the woods. The shadows loomed, each tree felt like a grasping hand. The laughter grew louder, mixing with the rustling of leaves, an agonizing chorus. Heart pounding, Sarah searched the ground until they stumbled onto a faint trail, a remnant of a long abandoned road. "Ethan, this way," she called, leading him off the forest path where the overgrowth seemed less dense. But the laughter was relentless, a demonic chant echoing through the cold night air. Suddenly, Ethan stopped again, turning sharply. "Mom, I think it's close." "Keep moving, just a little longer." Panic clawed at her throat. She glanced back, swathes of shadow swirling menacingly behind them. Then, an image materialized in the darkness, a figure moving quickly between the trees. Panic surged, propelling her forward, but her instincts screamed otherwise, urging caution. "What about the old quarry?" Ethan's voice broke through, a desperate suggestion amid the chaos. "Maybe we can hide there." Sarah hesitated for a breath, the memory swirling her mind. The old quarry, rumored to be haunted, a place they once told stories about on summer nights. "Yes. Let us go." They sprinted, exhaustion seeping into their bones, but the thought of the creature lurking kept them moving. They stumbled onto the gravel path leading directly to the quarry's edge, the remnants of the old stone walls rising like sentinels from the earth. "Mom!" Ethan shouted, pointing. "Over there." A gaping maw with a narrow entrance lay exposed against the rocky face, a cave. Heart racing, they rushed inside, the faint smell of damp earth greeting them with a hint of unease. Stepping into the darkness felt more like a plunge into the abyss, cold shadows wrapping around them. "Stay close," she murmured, instinctively positioning herself in front of him as they crept into the cave. The laughter still echoed outside, but it felt more muted now, swallowed by the stone walls. With each step into the darkness, hope flickered dimly. They could hear the call of the creature, distorted, swelling and waning with each passing moment. "Do you think we'll be safe?" Ethan whispered, eyes wide in the dark. "I'm not sure," Sarah admitted, fidgeting with her phone, desperately tapping the screen. "But we have to try." She turned on the flashlight, the beam slicing through the darkness, illuminating the jagged rocks. A fleeting comfort washed over her until the shadows started to shift again. It was then she heard it, a deep growl resonating from the depths of the cave. "Ethan, we need to move deeper into the cave. Quick!" They pressed on, cobwebs brushing against Sarah's arms as they hurried forward. With the laughter growing distant, Sarah hoped they would find a way out, a back exit, perhaps. The flickering beam bounced off the rocky wall, revealing desolation that stretched into uncharted territory. "Mom," Ethan's voice quaveconed again, strained. Suddenly, something grabbed her attention, a harsh scrape, nails against stone. "The exit's close. We can find it." Sarah felt a surge of zeal, everything inside her brewing with vibrant urgency. But the growl returned, much closer now. The cave shuddered with hunger, a promise of wrath looming ever nearer. "Mom!" came a panic yelp from Ethan as shadows coiled around them from deep within the cave. Time was slipping through her fingers, and the sound told her they had mere moments before the predator would emerge. "Just stay behind me," she yelled, lunging deeper into the cave. A flash of movement caught her eye again as she bolted forward into a tight space, squeezing through the jagged rocks before emerging on the other side. A glimmer, a ray of moonlight. "Ethan!" They rushed toward the speck of light breaking through the cave wall, but as she reached it, a crushing realization hit her. The beam pointed at a sheer drop into unseen depths. There was no salvation here, not leaving, not escaping. The growl erupted into maddening laughter behind them, reverberating off the walls, and she could feel the creature pressing closer. "Mom," Ethan stuttered, the shadowy figure emerging from the darkness behind them, creeping with the face of a predator. Sarah turned, determined yet trembling with terror, clutching Ethan's hand tighter. "I'll always protect you," she cried into the void as the growl turned into feral laughter, echoing through the void behind them, relentless and merciless. But as they edged back into the haunting light, a flicker of something new struck her, a spark, an undeniable wildfire of fury. "They wouldn't be claimed." She pulled Ethan close to her chest, filling her heart with reminders of warmth, love, and hope. "Let us go, together." With everything in her, Sarah hurled them both into the light, into the promises of freedom beyond the cavern's walls, not for herself, but for the boy in her arms that anchored her to reality. They flew into the turn of freedom, arrows spinning, the echo of the monster returning behind them. And then, the world erupted. Amid the chaos, the shadows silenced, the creature howled, yet Sarah felt the space bend, palpable energy filling the air. The weight shifted, a final reckoning as they burst through to the edge of the light into the soft embrace of dawn. It was done. They had emerged from the nightmare together. The sun unfurled across the horizon as footsteps crunched, the sounds of dawn breaking the horizon. Safety found them in the light of day. With tears streaming down her face, the daughter of darkness turned, and they finally faced a new beginning. "We made it, Ethan," she whispered, pulling him close, feeling the warmth of life pulse inside the endless light it would forever remain. "Yeah," he murmured, wrapping his arms around her tightly. "Together always," she said, watching as the shadows receded behind the trees, silence replacing the monstrous laughter that had once taunted them. As they stood on the edge of morning, they melted into the sun with relief and love. A world beyond the fear awaited them, one built anew and shared, together in hope. Now is the time to join this journey. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss our next exclusive stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ride. Your support means everything to us.